at 553 Lincoln Street in the town of Lewiston. A large law enforcement response from multiple surrounding agencies assisted the Lewiston Police Department in trying to identify who this individual was and what was happening. As you can imagine, this was a very fast-paced, fast-moving, very fluid scene, very dangerous scene that these guys and girls were going into. 18 people are now deceased at this time. The victims at the just-in-time establishment, 7 people are deceased there, 1 female and 6 males, all from an apparent gunshot wound. Victims at the Schmegler's Billiards, 8 are deceased. 7 males inside the establishment, 1 male outside of the establishment. Again, also apparent gunshot wounds. Multiple people were transferred to area hospitals, Central Maine Medical Center, St. Mary's, and Maine Medical Center. 3 people that were transferred to those hospitals are deceased, for a total of 18 people deceased at this time. The investigation into the person responsible for this identified a vehicle located at the Jet Scott boat landing in Lisbon. That person, through the registration of that vehicle, is identified, as has been stated earlier, as a Robert Card, born in 1983. Several of the deceased have been identified, and their families, next of kin, have been notified. Approximately 8 people at this point have been identified. 10 people, 10 of these victims, still need to be identified at this time. Currently, there is an arrest warrant for 8 counts of murder for Mr. Card. And the reason it's 8 counts is because 10 people have not yet been identified. As those people are identified, the counts will probably go to the total of 18. He should be considered armed and dangerous. Based on our investigation, we believe this is someone that should not be approached. This is someone that should be, if you come into any contact with this individual or someone that you think looks like this individual, you want to call 911, and I'll provide some tip line numbers at the conclusion of my briefing. The Lewiston Police Department, federal, state, county, and other local municipalities are involved in a coordinated search at this moment for this individual. So there's the ongoing investigation and there's a search to apprehend this person, both happening simultaneously. I can't stress this enough. This is an ongoing investigation in the early stages. More information will come out in conjunction with the Attorney General's office as the lead prosecutor. We can't share all of our information right now, and I'm sure you understand that. I'm going to give out 2 numbers that go to a tip line. 911 is also appropriate for this, but if anyone can call these 2 numbers, this would go to the state police tip line. Area code 207-213-9526, 207-509-9002. And we'll be sending something out later that has that information in it if you weren't able to grab that now. Again, this is a very fluid situation. We have a lot of resources, as Chief St. Pierre had mentioned earlier, that are on the ground in a coordinated effort to apprehend this individual. We've notified the Department of Education, and they have determined what they're going to do with the schools. A lot of schools, area schools, were shut down today based on our conversation with them. Again, as more information comes in, we'll be providing it to you. Thank you for your time. This is a very difficult time for, I think, the community of Lewiston, difficult time for obviously the families, and it's a tough time for law enforcement. It was a rough night last night, but we're committed to bringing whoever's responsible to justice. And again, we are currently looking for Mr. Card right now, someone that we'd like to apprehend. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. And FBI Special Agent in Charge, Cohen, if you could run me, please.
Thank you. My name is Jody Cohen. I'm the special agent in charge of FBI Boston Division, which covers the state of Maine. Our hearts go out to everyone who was impacted as a result of this senseless violence. The FBI is working hand in hand with our law enforcement partners. Our evidence response team is here processing these very extensive scenes. We are providing investigative and tactical support, as well as our victim specialists are working with those affected by this tragedy. As this very active investigation continues to unfold, we're asking the public to stay vigilant and come forward with any information that you might have that you feel is relevant to our investigators. My pledge is that the FBI will carry out this investigative case with rigor. We will work day and night alongside our law enforcement partners to get the answers to the questions this community deserves. We thank the public for your continued cooperation and patience as we continue to work this very active investigation. Thank you.
Is there any single men? Please step up.
Appreciate that. And I would say that the reality here from a resource standpoint is that when we've asked for anything, the answer has been yes, period. Tactical teams, evidence response teams, full-blown investigative units, detective units that have come from multiple states, whether it's the commissioners from Vermont, New Hampshire reaching out to me directly, Massachusetts saying, what do you need, Mike? What can we do for the state of Maine? So we are now prepared to try to take a few questions. And keep in mind, again, that we may not be able to answer as in-depth as you would like, and we don't plan on taking a great deal of questions. I think follow-up press events will allow for that. Sir?
So, no one has really talked about here.
Looks like a pencil neck to me. Bureaucrat.
There are reports that this individual had mental health issues that he made threats
Pencil neck.
of the National Guard. So clearly there were some signs here.
King Dork.
Someone's radar.
Look at this shit.
Question becomes why was he in possession of this weapon, and certainly why wasn't he stopped soon?
Yeah, I think those are all valid questions, and certainly questions that we are looking into now, but not questions that we can answer today. Considering that this occurred last night, there's still an active search for the suspect in question, so I can appreciate those questions, but not something we're going to be able to answer right now. It is certainly one of those things that we want to follow up on, all aspects of that. Go ahead, Ray. Yes.
Because of the ages of who has died, how many are under 18 and how many are over 18?
I'm not sure we have that information with us today.
Yeah, thanks for asking questions, but we're not going to answer shit.
That's something we had readily
Brilliant.
available. We did
Brilliant.
not break
Stonewall.
down the age
I love
ranges, at all.
So what
Yes.
can you tell us about the background of the suspect? So it should be the person of interest, because I noticed the language is very clear. It's saying person of interest, not suspect. So why do you put them out? What can you tell us about the background?
Yeah, I think we used person of interest last night for half of the room that was here for that press event. As the Colonel had mentioned, there is now arrest warrants for murder for this particular individual, Mr. Carr. So he is viewed as a suspect, and there is a full court press by all of our partners to bring him into custody. What was the second piece of that question?
Wanted to ask about the FBI and concerns about his own mental health. As he committed, according to language in the police bulletin, to a mental health facility for weeks. How could someone who fits that profile still be in possession of something of that effect?
Well, I do think that the statutes around firearms and the possession of those are pretty complex. I know that we will be reviewing that information as we move forward, but that's not an answer that we're prepared to give today. But that leaves the motive. You're talking about behavioral health issues and how that impacts this situation. I would expect you'll hear back from us on that in the future. Right here.
Yeah, I've got a question of using helicopters as a part of that. Can you tell us anything about what the that part of the Sealer?
Yeah, sure. So we have law enforcement assets that are deployed over a number of communities, doing follow-ups on a number of different things. So as you can imagine, there's a great deal of search warrants that we're following up on. We do have partners, that helicopters from the New Hampshire State Police. That copter was here last night to assist us as well. So whether we have tactical elements out or we're searching an area, some of those air assets would be very, very valuable for us. So that's what they're doing. We're not going to speak to what brings us to a specific community one way or the other. Yes, ma'am. Right here.
What are people
have a family, a reunification center open last night. We do have behavioral health liaisons that are fully engaged to work with families, and work with loved ones, and work with victims for that matter, that may be in the hospital and seeking treatment. So those things are actively occurring. We're dealing with each one of those situations separately. So do we need DNA on that? Are we just waiting to find a loved one, some kind of family member that we can make a notification? I think that varies across the board. I'm gonna take 2 more questions. I think right here.
Yes, but there's some sort of triggering event, that's something that you're investigating.
I think we're always concerned around motive. That you say triggering event, that's a motive for us. Again, that's not something we're prepared to discuss today, but I do appreciate the question. It's clearly something that's important. One additional follow-up with you.
Can you help us understand why these locations, why this bar, why this bowling alley? When you looking for someone, was he looking for something?
I think that does speak to motive, so I appreciate the follow-up, but not something we're gonna be prepared to answer today. And then one more question, it's right here, sir, right here.
First off, to clarify, there was warrants issued today, and can you say if Card is still in the state or if he's still alive?
Well, we're actively searching for him. If I knew the answers to those questions, and this would be a different press conference, I would assume. So we don't know his location, and I'll leave it at that. And we are working with the Attorney General's office reference to those murder cases. So with that in mind, we're done taking questions for now. So we are going to actually take off at this point. Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate that.
Thanks for Jack.
In the state of Maine have a lot of questions, and the emotions are running hot because they haven't caught this killer yet. And we don't know exactly what they're dealing with.
I tell you what is hot, it's a mature mill.
So real quickly, as they wrap up this news conference now.
That's what's
so
hot.
with questions, and you can see
Oh,
the
yeah.
law enforcement and officials, because the governor's there too, are lined up in the back. They're trying to get out of here now. But those journalists are doing their jobs in terms of trying to figure out what to tell the public if there's any last thing. And I know those officials are under a lot of pressure, and we want them to do their jobs too. But this turned into a shout fest a little bit at the end there.
Under pressure,
The
under
massive
pressure.
search for the shooter who gunned down at least 18 people in a murderous rage. That number of 18, at least 18 dead, is new information about the victims. And also, new to the whole spectrum of information that we have, the governor of Maine just said the number of injured has been revised down now to 13. Any life lost or person injured, obviously, is a tragedy. And hearing any numbers, and even the ones we've just been given are likely to change again, we're told, is tough. But the revision down from 50 to 60 to 13 injured for right now would be a huge development positively. But if you are the family members of any of those 18, at least 18 dead, I can only imagine you would want those reporters to shout as much as they could to get any information that I don't know if you could ever make sense of it, but whatever we can do now to get this guy, it's all hands on deck, including the public, by the way. And so during this hour, and I'm going to ask my team to immediately put up that number that people can call, and we're putting it across all of our show pages as well. One of the places the killer hit was a bowling alley, and we're told it was a family, kids type fun night. It's now feared some of the victims are children. And we learned 7 people died at the bowling alley. That's what we just learned from this news conference. The town of Lewiston, Maine took the brunt of what we are told was one man's rage. It's located about 30 miles north of Portland. The entire city and surrounding communities are in lockdown. The Manhunt is entering its 16th hour now. Law enforcement have identified 40-year-old Robert Card. You see his picture. We will show it a lot. He originally was a person of interest. Now there are 8 counts of murder against him. And what we were learning just now from the news conference is that will likely pop to whatever the death count is. And right now that would be 18. But there are charges against this man. That's how we begin the hour. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. The first calls for help began coming in at 7:08 p.m. Eastern. A man opened fire at Just-in-Time Recreation Bowling Alley. which was packed with teenagers who were having fun. They were there with their youth bowling league. Police say the shooter left the bowling alley and went to a bar about 4 miles away. They say he targeted that bar and grill, rather, excuse me. Retired NYPD Inspector Paul Morrow is with me now. You've been on through the night.
Right.
You've been up all night and looking at this. What new information did we get there that tells you how did they get this guy?
Well, first of all, let's acknowledge that we got some good news there with the numbers being revised down. As we said last night, in any situation, the first 9 of 10 reports are going to be wrong, so we got that. Now, what's new that came out of that? Not a whole lot, all right? Let's take a step back a little bit and say where we are now relative to the search now that it's daylight, okay? First of all, he's obviously going to be more visible, but the other thing is that some of the things that they couldn't do overnight, they can start to do now. And what does that mean? They can start to serve some legal process, search warrants, and subpoenas as they dig into his life, because obviously right now, the more obvious ways of finding him haven't worked. He's been on the loose here a good long time. They scrambled the search up quite quickly, and the circumstances are mysterious, for lack of a better term. His car is found in Lisbon, which is about halfway between Lewiston and where he reportedly lived in Bowdoin. Was he on the way to the house? We don't know. There's a river there. There's some soft reporting that he might have access to a boat, okay? Unlike a lake, which is enclosed, a river can take you somewhere.
Just a second, and I apologize for cutting in, but I want you to tell the audience what you know about his capability on the water, because it's more than one boat.
Right, so reportedly he may have access to 2 boats or even have ownership of 2 boats. That's the kind of thing. Are they registered? Did they dump the DMV file to see what does he have registered to him? What are the capabilities of those boats? Are they large, motorboats, et cetera, et cetera? One thing you can see from his social media, he's a very adept outdoorsman, at least on the water, okay? He's always pictured with fish. He's on what looks like in some of the images, not a lake, but a river. Why is that troublesome? As I was saying, that can take you someplace else. Now, we don't know how much planning went into this. Certainly there was a certain amount of planning, because you can see in the images of him entering the bowling alley, he's got combat pants on, he's got the pockets are bulging with almost certainly extra magazines, so he has more bullets to do damage. He's got a high-powered rifle, looks like an AR-15. He's got a scope on it, maybe even a night scope. So he did that much prep. He also knew enough, and this is unfortunate to say, he also knew enough to go to 2 very target-rich locations. As you mentioned, the bowling alley, we checked. The bowling alley actually said no lanes available tonight because we have our bowling league, okay?
The youth bowling league.
The youth bowling league. So he knew that, like he knew what was going on. Reportedly, he might have some connection to that place. He's gone to that bowling alley. Whether that's true or not, he then goes to a pool hall that's also very heavily populated, and that's why you got the body count that you did. They're not next door to each other. He had to drive from one to the other, and then he ditches the car. All of this argues, especially since they didn't have him already, all of this argues that there was some thought put into this, however skewed his thinking is, and you have to say to yourself, when he knows the area, he has some outdoor skills, it appears, there's waterways, he's a trained firearms instructor, and he hears voices. You have a real bad situation.
All right, so in recent days, and I know, a lot of this information now is becoming more solidified now that we've heard from the governor of the state of Maine and other law enforcement officials, but I appreciate what you always say and caution with, Paul. The first
Here's
9
voices.
reports are wrong. Well, we're only a few deep.
Right.
So we got to prepare for what we don't know that we don't know.
Right.
But for right
Don't
now,
know what we don't know.
when you say he was hearing voices,
You want to see this like futuristic technology?
That harkens back to what we can confirm, and that's that he spent
CNN.
time in a
I could talk to my remote control.
We have to make sure
Man, that's amazing,
that
dude.
we're staying in front of the decisions that Mr. Carter.
Which seems to be a real challenge now as we're watching, as this is playing out, and they do not know, they're saying, where he is right now. A question still also lingering is how many weapons they believe that he had or even has with him at this point. If everyone can just stay with us.
Microsoft, Bill
we
Gates,
just got a
NBC,
statement from President
MSNBC.
Biden on this. It's a pretty
That's Microsoft
Mentioned
NBC,
the
right?
words, I think, swift response.
we'll need a timeline after this. And when the time is right and all is said and done, I'm sure there'll be an investigative response study. I don't know if this was swift or not, to be honest with you. I don't understand, quite frankly, how the movement was allowed to continue. I don't know. We just don't know yet if police actually laid eyes on this guy or not. But we'll find out in due time, as there will be undoubtedly an investigation into all of this. And then, of course, the really overriding issue, how did someone who seems to have been committed, seems to have articulated threats to harm people recently, how did this not result in at least a temporary seizure of weapons? Did this even get entered into the NICS system, the National Instant Check System? All of that, we need answers.
Right, and was he still an active trainer when it comes to firearms, as we've been discussing, and yet we know had these mental health issues that were raised, was even committed to a mental health institution of some sort for a couple of weeks this past summer. Frank, because we don't have a lot of tangible evidence at this point or clues, we do have the pictures of what this person looks like, the surveillance images of him, you know, walking into one of these shooting locations. No face coverings, no body armor. We also know we have a vehicle also that they've put a picture of out there. As somebody with a trained eye, you know, we look at this and we say, okay, now we know what he looks like. We know somewhat the type of weapon he may use, but are these images and other information more useful to law enforcement than just identifying him?
Yes. Look, we're looking at a confident, trained shooter. He has the stance. He has the look in his eye. He has magazines. You'll notice the pockets of his cargo pants weighted down with various things. They could easily be extra magazines. They could be sidearms. They could even be explosive devices or knives. He's ready. He might have some source of fuel, meaning protein, for him to eat if he needs to get into the woods and hide. The fact that he's brazen about leaving his car at the dock, this is somebody who's probably not going to easily surrender. He's identified himself. He's saying, this is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. What are you going to do about it? And that's the history of spree killers. They simply either harm themselves or law enforcement has a violent encounter with them.
And so we heard from the police chief say this is an all-hands-on-deck effort with local, state, federal officials that are participating in this investigation.
It's time for Futuristic Technology.
About this individual,
Fox News.
Potential weaponry.
Man, that always amazes me every time.
So running this thing, and all the local jurisdictions are operating under them, and the federal agencies are there to enhance. The federal agencies bring a lot of technical expertise. They're the ones you're going to go to say, get us in this computer, it's password protected, we got an emergency search warrant, get us in. Does the phone back up to it? Notice they're not talking about his phone. Did he throw it in the river? Did he take the battery out? And I'm sure they tried to ping his phone right away to see if the phone can show where he is, right? So he knew enough not to do that. He's showing some tactical evasive abilities here that tell me this guy doesn't want to get caught. It doesn't look like a suicide mission to me. We thought it might be when there was reporting that he was coming back to the hospital last night, 2 in the morning or so. It looked like he was returning to where the police were. We thought we were going to see a live shootout. There's a very different set of circumstances. Turns out that was a false alarm. So this could go on a while. I'm reminded of the Danilo Cavalcante escape in Pennsylvania that we had recently. They had to keep widening the perimeter. You had the dogs out. Exactly. It took a lot longer than anybody expected. Let's just remember one thing, if I could close with this. We have to remember who the good guys are here. If the police did miss something, if the medical industry missed something here, nobody's going to feel worse than they do. I can tell you that the cops that are out there now, they've been up already for 36 hours. I'm tired from being up all night. I can't imagine how they feel, and they're not going to go home.
You're absolutely right about that. When I read that they had brought in quite a few extra FBI agents, I mean, the number was into the dozens. That said a lot about perhaps in terms of finding this guy that
From what I understand, half of New England law enforcement is in the area.
I am so appreciative of your time and your expertise, both when I watch from home and then when I have the ability for the audience to glean even more from you. Thank you, Paul Morrow. I appreciate it. We all pray that this ends with no more lives taken.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's move now to Israel, which is mobilizing for the next phase in the war against Hamas terrorists.
So
Overnight, Israeli Defense Forces say they launched the largest
it'll just keep
raid of
switching back
Greek-targeted
before.
invasion.
Dun, dun. All right, let's go to the breakfast. Do a transition here. Yeah, I got a Maine shirt. Say no to pot. The lobster. Hey, you guys, say no to pot. See, it's funny because the lobster goes in the pot, and then it says, say no to pot. Bar Harbor, Maine. Yeah. So we didn't go for the Holing Alley or Slane in Maine, out of respect for the people in Maine. So, yeah, my aunt lives there. She's elderly, going kind of blind. And, yeah, kind of blindish. She can only see a little bit, so hopefully that guy doesn't get loose in my dear old auntie's retirement village in Maine. So did the guy do what he wanted to do? And did he do a whole plan? Or is he too mentally unstable to plan? So apparently he hears voices. He obviously targeted people at looked at the pictures of it. Looks like a really good pool hall and restaurant and grill. Food looked pretty good, especially those chicken wings and the fries. Looking very, very nice. But some of their beef stuff looks great too. I like one they had some beef and they had like mashed potatoes with some some beef gravy, maybe au jus or something. And then they had some carrots, some like roasted carrots. I said, oh, that's a hearty, but that's a really, good meal setup right there. And so anyways, but yeah, nice Shemekis or whatever it's called. The restaurant, pool hall, bar and grill. Hello. That's what we always do with me and Travis used to call each other. And I would say, hello. And he'd say, hello. ¿Cómo estás? We do our like foreigner accent. Hello. Yeah, that's how we do our comedy. Hello, come in. Oh, what am I cooking? Let's do this. Well, let's start looking what I'm cooking. Or is it the Rock? He's like, come into my kitchen and come smell what's cooking. He does that funny thing. That was hilarious back in the day. And that shit used to make me laugh all the time. He should come back as the Rock and just be like, they should just make a Rock movie where he's like a wrestling again. Where he's like in character. But anyways, yeah. I don't want to see Mr. Nanny or Mr. Mom or some bullshit ass movie like that anymore, Who's Your Daddy with Mark Wahlberg and Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. I want to see a good movie, dude, for once. That's all I ask before I die, is to see like a good movie. Again. Whenever that will be. I don't know. It's been a long time. So, it's been a great movie drought for long periods of time. But, yeah, so it's some sausage links, Jimmy Dean, and then you got the Jimmy Dean scene, and then the hash browns, or Idaho potatoes. So here we go. And then I'm gonna have 2 eggs on top of that, like my 2 balls. Ah. Or you can have 2 titties. That's whatever you prefer. And so that's what I'm cooking. So this dude apparently has some Robert Card. Robert Card. Just kinda like, has some mental health issues, served in the military. Had some tactical firearms instructor training. Where am I from? I'm from Houston, H-Town, Screwston, Texas, Bayou City, Space City. Yeah, it's just my aunt lives in Maine, so, and that's my stepfather's sister. So she's kind of going a little blind and everything, but yeah, but she has a nice church community, she has a nice retirement, so she's good. But yeah, it's gotta suck, not only for the families and the victims and their prayers and condolences to those people, but also that this guy escaped. So that's the main goal of law enforcement, local and the federal, the FBI and Homeland Security and all that stuff. The Federal Bureau of Investigation. So what would I do if this happened in Texas, let's say? Oh yeah, you like Texas? They have meats like Arby's. Actually, they didn't have an Arby's in Texas at first. It was came from the West, I think. So there were no Arby's here at first. It was just McDonald's, Burger King, Whataburgers, Dairy Queen, etc., Wendy's, etc. And so on a trip to Las Vegas, in the '90s, when I was really young, like 13 or something, we took a trip, me and my parents, MGM Grand, Las Vegas Strip, all that stuff. And I saw the cowboy hat, I saw the Arby's, and my dad's like, hey, they don't really have Arby's here, so why don't we stop in there? And then I went to the Arby's and I said, oh, that roast beef looks pretty good. And so I got the roast beef with the curly fries, and I was like, oh my God, this is just like some fucking roast beef slapped on some buns. Like, there's nothing really going on here. There's nothing exciting here. I don't really like this place. And then so I went back to Texas thinking, man, I guess they like that shit out west. I don't know. But down here in the South, it's like, not really. Yeah. At first they didn't have Arby's. So down the street in North Houston, they tried to open an Arby's, but they have Chick-fil-A, they have Burger King, they used to have Long John Silver's, but they have Taco Bell. They have all these fast food places, right? And now they have Hat Burger from Austin. They have In-N-Out Burger from California. They have all these, just competition out the ass. The food scene in Houston, Texas is crazy. The competition with the restaurants and the fast food chains is nuts. And so, I'm not saying people are fat asses, that they just like to eat down here, but I'm just saying yeah, it's because there's a lot of people here, so the competition food-wise is pretty intense. So, anyways, so the Arby's, I guess it went down during the Great Recession. A lot of food places go down in the Great Recession because, well, you don't need to go to Arby's. Do people need to go to Arby's? Do people need to go to McDonald's? No, you can go get food from the grocery store and just, live modestly. But people don't want to live modestly. That's the key. In this society, no one really wants to live frugally or modestly, because then they're like, oh, then I don't get to show off that I'm prosperous. And people hate that. People hate that. People don't want to act like they're not prosperous. People want to be flashing money around and have gold and jewels and be acting like jackasses. So Yeah. So we know what it is, but there's not really a need to go to fast food places, right? So it's more of a like, yeah, it's not just only about convenience. It's just like, hey, look, I have the ability to get fast food, and that I don't have to cook or prepare myself, and I don't have to buy all the ingredients, and it's like, yeah. So there's not really a need for it. It's more of a luxury. Yeah. It's more like it's not a big of a status symbol as a car. If I buy a sandwich, it's not a big like status symbol like driving through with a Lexus or BMW or a Bugatti or Andrew Tate bullshit or something. But as far as Arby's, I was very unimpressed in Las Vegas. I was like, you 2 buns and you just slap some roast. I mean, it's nice sliced roast beef, no big deal. I mean, I'm sure that Japanese Wagyu, and now they're doing like what venison and bison, and you know they're getting desperate because in the last economic recession, people didn't need to go to my cafe, and they also did not need to go to Arby's, so the Arby's shut down. It's like intense competition, economic distress causes economic collapse. So when people started to focus on things they need and not things they desire, then the economy changes, obviously. Now the In-N-Out burger is going to survive in Houston, Texas, even in such a brutal, like multi-million population, like 2.4 million people or something like that. In-N-Out burger will survive because, well, their In-N-Out burgers are really good. They got that gooey cheese and they got those really nice thin patties and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, Anthony Bourdain, the famous chef, you know, that committed suicide, unfortunately. I saw an episode, he was at In-N-Out Burger, and it was just coming to Texas from California, and they even have like a quadruple burger on there. Gooey cheese, and I got the quad, dude. I just said, fuck it. You know, like, sometimes you're going to make decisions that are like, maybe they're not so good for your health, but you're going to be like, you know, you only live once, so you just do it. Like, it's like, why not get a Wagyu Japanese steak burger, you know, from Arby's? So why not? You're not going to get to live again. Well, I'm sorry, the Quad. I was saying it like it was the defense network against China. I'm sorry, the quadruple cheeseburger. Excuse me. I just used the four. It's the 4 patties. I was thinking about geopolitics, so I said the Quad, but that's not really accurate, right? It's the quadruple cheeseburger. My bad. So I was still thinking about those Johnny Harris videos where they call the defensive ring around China militarily is called the Quad. The 4 opposing U.S. Western Allied states. I believe it's what, South Korea, Japan, Australia, and the Philippines. Yeah, that's the Quad. I think that, yeah, exactly. Because that makes sense. The ring that's supposed to contain China from trying to take over the world. You know, contain them from thinking about taking over the earth. And so... Medical update. In Maine.
Nurses and physicians from some of our area hospitals. We had helicopter support, not only from our own Life Flight of Maine, but also from Boston Medflight and from Dartmouth. So the long answer to that, or the short answer is yes.
About the lockdown, obviously there was a large police presence outside the hospital this morning. How long do you anticipate that to be kept, and why exactly do you need some personnel?
So we're taking the lead from law enforcement, and they're the ones who are telling us what we need to do and how we need to do it. As long as the city is in, what's the term that they use? Shelter in place. As long as we're in a shelter in place, then we will continue to remain in our current status.
This kind of event happens a lot in America. A lot of hospital directors have to deal with situations like this. Do you have a professional opinion about the fact that this is part of what the American medical community regularly has to respond to?
It's a good question. I don't know that I have a professional opinion about having to respond to this. I would just say that it's a tragedy, and I think we should do our best to respect the families, those people who've been impacted, the caregivers. I'll just add one thing, just talking about that. We do have an incredible amount of support for people who are going through a difficult time right now, mental health issues, any kind of stress or anxiety from not only the events that have happened, but having to witness some of it. And so we're continuing to provide those resources, and much to the question asked earlier about other areas and other neighboring towns or communities, we've received a lot of support from neighboring towns, communities, and agencies from around the state in order to offer support not only to the patients and families that we have, but also to our team members.
Last question?
Is there a call to action at all for blood drive? I know people want to know things about that.
For right now, we and I believe the other trauma centers in the state are very adequately supplied with blood and other supplies. I think the one thing that I would ask for people who are at home right now is if you're in an area where you're being asked to shelter in place, please do so and stay safe. We go back to one point, the amount of time that elapsed from when you first got notified, the first patient arrived, till the last one, and obviously some admitted, some not. Sure, yeah, that time frame was approximately 45 minutes. We received 14 patients, critically ill patients at that time, over 45 minutes. So that happened very quickly, and our teams responded exceptionally well.
Thank you all. We'll keep you posted. State police will have information as soon as they can.
All right, so we got some pertinent details there on the victims. This was important to know. The first patient arrived at 7:24 p.m., so that would have been just a few moments after those first 911 calls came in at 7:08. The 14th patient arrived at that same Central Maine healthcare system facility 45 minutes later. We now know that there were 10 ambulances that were sent in from outside the county to be standing by with their crews. You know that all of that support made a difference last night. That's a lot of people in a very short period of time, particularly in a place that is as spread out as rural Maine and southern Maine. Really, really amazing how quickly they responded. They brought in 100 off-duty staff members to respond to what they were treating in patients. There are 14, again, that are at this healthcare system. That's the most that we know. We know that 3 of those patients are in critical condition. We've been putting up on the screen, and it's important to do this because you just heard the chief doctor, John Alexander, saying that the psychological effects of what people have seen, particularly at the bowling alley where there were so many minors, people are going to need help. And so you will see the confidential grief counseling call or text number 988 up on the screen. We will toggle between that and the helpline to call police with the details such that you can give them tips and help them find this vicious killer. All right, we will check back as the news is made. And for the first time in the last hour and a half, I am seeing people pull their microphones off of that lectern there. there and move on. We knew something was going to follow law enforcement. We didn't know exactly what. Now we've heard from a
Oh yeah, I feel that. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Got to take a breakfast brunch break. Thanks for watching. L64 M1N Thanos 5. I like that whole thing. Gotta take a poop. Yeah, I gotta take a eat here. I feel that. The whole human being thing. I dig that whole biological function experience. I'm with you on that. So okay. I thought President Biden's not up because he sleeps until like 12 each day, so it was just pre-recorded. So he's got to get his nappy time in until 12, and then he'll roll out of bed and stuff. So got to give the president time, right? Especially, he's almost 81 years old. Got to give your boy Biden a little bit of time to wake up, have nappy time, and kind of have. All right, God bless. Thanks for watching. We'll try to come up with like some kind of FBI criminal profile on the suspect. I'm going to eat right now, but just got to digest some information and kind of brainstorm. Is this guy stable enough to plan another attack? Is he going to go out in a blaze of glory? Or will authorities be able to catch him through the helps of the citizens of Maine from the public? So, only time is going to tell what's going to happen. Time is of the essence. Or is he planning another devastator on a large crowd? It's Halloween weekend. Trump is the American icon, American legend. Money, 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 Trumpet. He's the best. Trump, MAGA. 4 more in 2024. Donald Pump, baby. Yeah. 75 million people can't be wrong. And plus, So God bless, best of success. Prayers and condolences to the tragedy, to the families of the tragedy in Maine. And also, may this perpetrator be caught quickly before he can do any more damage. So hopefully he has not made a plan, that is multi-layered. Hopefully he's erratic and unstable and he can be caught very quick. Peace. Later.